And we're live. It's the Mindstate Marketing Hour with our favorite scientist who doesn't look like a scientist. He's Will Leach. It's the Mindstate Marketing Hour, and today's topic is an interesting topic. Does lead nurturing work, keeping your customers engaged after your initial engagement? Will Leach, how are you, sir?
Hey, doing good. Same show, new day today, anyways.
Same show, new day. That's right. We got a little music in the background. It's called Feeding the Ducks. I don't know why, but it works.
It works for the guy. And if you gave me $1 billion and a million tries to come up with the name of this song, that would not be one of them. It would never cross my mind. But hey, all artists have their meaning behind their artistic endeavor. So good for this artist.
Well, I'm Steve Brown, your co-host, and we love having these conversations with Will. It's the Mindstate Marketing Hour, and as I like to say, how to use science to connect with your clients. And all this is started because one day Will sat down and wrote a book. He just got his pen out.
My quill.
Yeah, and he started scribbling away because he got inspired to write a book. And his book, by the way, has a new look. Right here it is. If you haven't read Will's book, then you're a marketer. Your messaging is a one-size-fits-all messaging, most likely. And if you were to go to a clothing store, a shoe store, and all they had was one size, then it wouldn't really last very long, I don't think. Maybe you would have to figure out how to make modify the shoe to fit you if that's all you had to choose from. But people don't have to modify your message. They can just go on to your competitor. So that's why these conversations are important with Will. Will, just give us a little bit of a backstory on why in the world did you sit down? Who in the world did you think you are that you could write a book and teach us about Mindstate marketing?
I should have my couch. I should lay on my couch and talk for a while. No, guys, I was in corporate America at very large companies. For a majority of my career, I was actually at PepsiCo, and I was asked to better understand why marketing works. Because let me tell you, the stats are pretty clear. About $600 billion worth of marketing is estimated every year globally to not work. $600 billion. Content marketing. I saw something on content marketing that said something around 40% of all content is never read. Steve, do you believe it? I believe it.
I believe it.
I believe it too. 40%. So I looked at all these stats and I was asked to look at behavioral sciences to explore from a deep psychological perspective why marketing works versus let's just spend more. That's the normal answer. Spend more. Let me get something more creative. Let me spend more money. Let me place it better. Let me use data analytics. And that is a small part of the total solution that you should be focusing on. Science, and particularly behavioral science, can help you modify your messaging to the individual. Hyper individualization, sometimes it's called, and that's what the book and that's what my new passion has been.
So when people approach a decision, we all justify our decisions. We get home and maybe your spouse goes, "Why did you buy that?" And you've got all sorts of good reasoning. But the truth is, you bought it on emotion. And
every behavior you do, Steve, is done on emotion. Everything you do is emotion, and you post rationalize it. Yep.
Yeah, and so you're on the way driving home, you justify it. All right, so you go show your new car. Yeah, I got a good deal on it.
Yeah, it's got good mileage, right?
Yeah.
Steve, you know how many vacuum cleaners I have in my house right now?
I don't know, 3?
I got 4. And I justified every single one of them. My wife is like, "You're not going to Costco," because I always buy vacuum cleaners. I am fascinated emotionally with vacuum cleaners. So I have to rationalize to her why we need 4. And you know how much of my house is carpeted? Not a lot of it. Not a lot of it. There's a lot of wood and concrete in my house. So anyways, yeah. There's emotions behind decisions. And if you don't understand these emotions and how the emotional processing works for your customers' brains, like Steve said, you're kind of throwing stuff out there. You got clothes out there, but they're not going to fit right. And we like to buy clothes that fit right. And we like to have messages that feel intuitive. And that's what behavioral science and marketing to mind states is all about.
Okay, so today's topic, does lead nurturing work? How to keep your customers engaged 1 week, month, year after your initial engagement. Okay, there's a backstory here. What's going on, Will?
There is. So I'm going to tell you a story that just happened last week to me, and I thought I'd bring it up. So I was contacted through my website, Steve. You can come and you can kind of schedule an appointment with me, and I got a request for some time, 30 minutes or maybe even an hour. I think was for like a meet and greet. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, okay, I don't know who this person is, and I looked at when she originally hit my email list because I don't know. How did she come to my website? I have no idea. So I found out that she originally somehow at one point came to my website back in early 2020. She is engaged with almost every single email, Steve. That's hard. Every bit of content she's opening up. And so I'm looking at this on my stats. I'm like, wow, this person's like a super fan, but she's never reached out for 2 years. Finally, she decided to schedule an appointment. We had this amazing call where she told me that she doesn't remember how she got to my website, but she said, I read your emails every week because out of all the emails, she's a corporate executive, by the way, a big company you all would know, big company executive. You're one of the only like maybe 4 emails that subscription emails that I get every week that I read because I really love your stuff. And I didn't have the guts to ask her, well, then why did it take you so long? We're going to talk about that later on about, okay, why is it taking her so long to just contact me? But I started thinking about it. She's been getting nurturing campaigns from me for about 2 years, and it finally worked. And I could argue that it has been working until it was the right time. So sometimes I think people wonder, should I be doing these nurturing campaigns? Is it worth it or whatever? And that's a great example of a major corporate client that I didn't know even existed out there that I've been nurturing for 2 years before she finally reached out and scheduled our first call. So it's kind of cool to see it happen.
Crazy, but that's your exact person, this exact persona that you wanted to attract and wanted to work with, correct?
That's correct. And Steve, I was talking to your team about it yesterday, and it was because the nurturing campaigns that your company does for me. I mean, we work together on this. This kind of stuff works, And you always talk about playing the long game, right? You always you got to play the long game on this stuff. You got to play the long game on this stuff, and there is a long game, and that's a great example of the long game. Still, I'm still scoring points even in the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah. People, you don't know what stage they are in their journey. And it may take time for, things to align to where, all right, I've got the best solution I've been following, and now it's time to make my move. And so we wished, as a marketer myself, right? I wished I could tell my clients, no, let's just blast that out to your list. The phones will start ringing. It's not really true. First we had to land on who is it that you really want to appeal to. And when we wandered around a little bit on that, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure did. And even to this day, you're constantly tweaking. It's never really exact, right? There's always a little bit of tweaking you do to make it even better. But you're right, it took a while.
But one good account like this can be quite, can make a big difference in your company.
That's right. If somebody's going to advocate for you, which she actually did on the call, there's a point where I even said she had somebody else on the call, which is great. She had another, she actually brought somebody else in on this call, and she actually was the other person on the call had said something about innovation research or whatever, and I talked a little bit about it, and she said, the girl I was talking to said, I don't know, it's not really, doesn't feel like that's in your thing, and like the person who'd been reading my email stopped her and said, no, you have to communicate about innovations. And she stopped her. I'm like, this person her first conversation is advocating on my behalf. Cause I'm thinking about how do I get around this question? She's basically telling me I'm not right for her. She's basically telling me, and her person on the phone, the person who originally was getting my content knew so much about me. I didn't even know she knew. She actually went right in there and stopped that kind of train of thought. So yeah, it can work. It can really work in your favor.
Did she read your book first?
She did not, which is so funny, Steve. She did not read my book from anything I can tell, because she started the conversation with, I read all your emails and all this stuff. And we saw that she's been on a couple of webinars, but she said, tell me what you do. What do you do? Now that's an issue we're going to talk about, right? Because it doesn't make any sense to nurture somebody and then they're not really clear exactly what you do. And that'll be kind of one of the things we talk about later on about, prompting people to take action. So I don't think she knew about the book. I'm not sure. It's on my kind of pitch deck and we talked about it, but I don't get the sense she read it. I think she literally wandered into my website because probably SEO, something around behavioral science. She knew her stuff around behavioral marketing for sure. So she can't remember. She just says, I'm pretty sure I must have wandered on your website and then signed up for your blog. And then from there, boom, she's been getting blogs and emails and videos and everything else.
Wow. So, all right. So you have understand the goals and what motivates your customers. Why'd you pick this next?
Yeah. So if you're thinking about a nurturing campaign, for those of you who don't know, what a nurturing campaign does is kind of allow somebody to receive information from you, communications, whatever kind of marketing that fits where they are in the moment of their buying journey. We're going to talk about those stages, in their buying journey. But all human behaviors and all marketing is honestly grounded in two different things. All of it. It is, one, do you help somebody reach their goals? And then after that, are you motivating enough? You're giving enough emotional fuel for them to take action? Every behavior is pushed onto those two things. You got to have those. I mean, there's other things you should do and all. I got it. I love it. But those two things are pretty critical when it comes to communications. So if you're going to message to somebody, regardless of where they are in their shopper journey, their buying journey, their nurturing journey with you, then you need to understand those goals. And just so happens, right, is we wrote a book on that, Steve. Do you believe it? It's called Marketing to Mindstates. So actually, even on the site, and I use these. I have a workbook. You probably, for those of you on the podcast, I'm showing a workbook. But we do workshops all the time, and we have to train people how to do this. And it's very simple. And you can actually go and you could buy this workbook on one of our options on the website. But really, what you have to do is you have to understand what are people's functional goals. We talk about this a lot. What are people asking for? And literally, I have the question here. It's, you basically ask the question, what does he or she want? And just write that down. When you're talking to customers, well, I want it to be really fast. I want you to be friendly. I want you to taste good. Just start writing those things down. When you do that, guys, the next thing you want to do is aggregate these into what's called a higher order aspirational goal. And really what you want to do is you look at that list of 5 things that you wrote down and just ask yourself, why does he or she really want to reach these goals? What would it do for them personally? It's in the book, man. It's right there. When you do that, you get much better understanding of their aspirational goals, why these things are important to them. When you speak to people's aspirational goals, when you message people's aspirational goals, you get breakthrough. But then after that, hey, thank you very much, Aaron. But after that, you can talk to somebody's goals, right, Steve? But it doesn't matter, because if they lack the emotional desire, they may be interested in what you said, and then they'll click off your email campaign. They'll click off, your webinar, whatever. What you have to do then is now message to their motivation. Steve, there are 9 motivations that drive the vast majority of human behavior. It looks like it's on page 7 of the workbook. It's in the book, chapter 5. So what it is there are these motivations around achievement, which is a desire for success. There's one around belonging, our desire for acceptance. Another one is safety. There's 9 of these things. If you understand your aspirational goals or your customers' aspirational goals and what they desire, whether it's a feeling of safety, whether it's a feeling of belonging, a feeling of control or empowerment, a feeling of freedom, if you put those into any messaging, wherever they are in that stage of their buying, of their buying cycle or their journey, they're going to have that initial reaction of, oh, I'm interested in what this person's saying, and it's making me feel a different way. When you do those things, you're much more likely to have a very successful nurturing campaign. Without it, your nurturing campaigns don't work. They just don't, because they'll read one of your emails and never another one, or maybe a third email, email in your email series of number 15. And so you never build that relationship because you're not consistent with their aspirational goals and their motivations.
So this person that you talked to yesterday, What was her motivation?
Surprising enough, when she told me her title, I wouldn't have guessed this. She was a senior director at a large corporate company, and she was in the insights field. And what it really was competence. Now, competence for those out there, it's a desire for mastery, and it's a motivation to feel capable by being qualified, skilled, or prepared in an activity. She thinks of behavioral science and behavioral science research and behavioral science marketing as a way of making her more capable, more skilled in her job. And since she's more skilled in her job, she sees that as career growth. So I was thinking, when I talk to executives a lot of times, Steve, we think, oh, they're driven by success. I don't think she really was, because she kept asking very deep questions. She wasn't asking me, so give me some case studies on some success of your company, how you've helped people. That would told me that she's driven by achievement. She never asked that. She said, I want to go deeper in on, she even went into regulatory fit theory, which was amazing to me. And she started asking me about how I think about brands and how brands can use that. And so she wasn't looking for me to help her become successful. I think she was looking for greater competence from me. So she was actually, in my world, very much driven by skill, her desire to be more skilled. And so she looks at my company as a way of giving her more capability so that she can feel more mastery over what her job is.
Yeah. And she's accountable to the folks that have employed her.
Yep. Well, it's also funny too, now that I think about it, we have training. So I have two companies. I have the research arm and then I have the training arm. And when she heard I did training, she stopped. She goes, oh, training. So that even makes me feel like even more about capabilities. She's trying to bring capabilities and new skills into her organization. So she even stopped me and said, I want to learn more about this too. So which again makes me believe that a part of her role is building skills out for her team or however big her team is.
Awesome.
Yep.
So on the emotional side, you were talking about your messaging, fine, but you need to have an emotional motivation. Where do you think maybe that now kind of you were wavering about your messaging recently? Okay, you were actually, we had a conversation that, am I doing it? Am I posting too much content? That's right. How do you feel now?
Yeah, well, I need to say that. It works. The problem with a lot of this stuff, guys, is it's hard to do attribution analysis to know what's working, what's not, especially if you're a small business. If you're a large corporation, you can maybe do some of this stuff. I don't think you can a whole lot, but you can't, but you don't know what's going to work and what's not. So what you have to do is keep going at it. Keep going at it. Totally get why you got to keep going at it. Because it could be that one email that comes at the right moment. And I'm about owning the moment. Like that's what the book is about. Like a mind state is about owning the moment when somebody's considering your product. So it's in that moment that email matters. You got to get kind of lucky sometimes. I think about car commercials, right? Why do car commercials keep just blasting car commercials all the time, knowing that I only buy a car every 4 or 5 years, 6 or 10. For me personally, it's like every 10 years. They do it because they know that the vast majority of their ads are wasted. The vast majority of people are not in the car buying market, but they see car ads. But it's that one person who's looking for a car and they go, I never considered a Hyundai or a Kia or whatever. So maybe I'll go do some consideration. If they don't know when that person's in that consideration state, you have to kind of just be consistent, be consistent, be consistent.
So you're talking about identifying the different stages of the buying process. So let's back to this story here. Where are they in their buying process? What stage?
Yeah. So what I would say is that I think some people overthink these stages. I saw a 7-stage model one time of where people are in their shopping. There are sub stages, and that's way too complex, guys. I think it can be very, very simple, which is somebody's unaware of you. They've never heard of you. They're aware of you. They've heard of you. They may even listen to you here and there, but they don't really know you a lot. Then there's kind of another one, which is like they're considering you to help them in some way. And then there's like, I've decided, like I've got a contract in hand. I'm going to make a decision. And then maybe you can even say retention if you want to. So I think it's probably about 4 things. Where she was aware of me. But remember, one of her first questions is, I just want to know what you do. She was, I get these emails from you and I love reading them, but what are you all about? So she was in the awareness stage, but she was not considering me for anything. So what I took from that because I start off every conversation kind of saying, well, you kind of get to build some rapport. get to know somebody, and then you ask kind of like, so how can I help you? How can I help you is the first thing to understand somebody's goals. Like, it's literally the first thing you do. It's like, how can I help you? And they're going to say, well, I'm looking for dot, dot, dot. And those are the features they're looking for you. And then you say, well, tell me more about that. And hopefully you'll ladder them up to aspirational goal. When I said, how can I help you? She was like, I don't even know if I need help. I just want to know what you do. So I was like, okay, I know she's not ready. She's not in the decision stage of anything. She's not in the consideration stage of anything. She literally told me, I don't know what you do. She was aware of me because she saw some of my stuff, and she was kind of in that kind of stage of like, help me understand how. She was in the stage of like, how can I consider you in the future, whatever you do. That's why I took a step back, and I didn't say, we got a partnership program I can talk about right now that can, like, she doesn't know anything about me except for she gets these kind of cool emails from me. So I had to step back and go high level and talk a little bit about, we have a research company and we have a training company. We help people do the things that I talk about in those emails, just so then she could kind of put me into like a little mental map, right? She can kind of understand what I do, and then let her think. I'll let her think about that for a while until she starts coming up with projects. And she did on that call. In fact, she said, I think you would be perfect for this project that, it's kind of already left the train station a bit, but she was trying to figure out where to place me versus me saying, here are the 15 things I can do for your company, right? I can do these things right now. She wasn't ready for that. She wanted to make that kind of bridge herself.
So think about the conversation that happened to trick that other person to get on the call with her and invest some time meeting Will, who I'm not sure what he does. Think about that. I think she probably knew more. Maybe she was letting the other person kind of consider options. It sounds like there was a little bit of a persuasion process going on with the invited guest.
Could have been.
Okay, so we got an advocate bringing someone along that might have to sign off on this and needed your help getting some options to appear in their mind. No?
Yeah, could be. Yeah, very well could be. These clients, Steve, they're tricky, right? They're sneaky. That very well could be. I wish I would have known the story. I wish I would have known the trick beforehand, because I was sweating like my sweating like. When you saw the name of the company, especially, I was like, wow, that's a big company. This is a great call. So yeah, you're right. It could be. But the overall point is, if you don't know where they are in that decision cycle, wherever they are, then you can talk about your company in a totally terrible, that doesn't make any sense to them to talk about, if I can't say, well, I got this partnership program. She's like, partner, why would I partner with you? I don't even know what you do. I'm like, well, I got a partnership program. You want to work with me for 12 weeks. So the thing is, and it sucks, guys. It does suck if you're a small business trying to figure it out, but it really does matter. You can really message, you can have a great company, and they're not ready to hear how great you are until they're ready to hear how great you are.
Yeah. So did you create a sense of urgency in that meeting at some point, or they still need to percolate?
Steve, this is where I fail all the time, man. Look, guys, I wrote about this stuff in the book, and I'm still bad at this. So create a sense of urgency to prompt people into action. Your nurturing campaigns they're going to be less effective if you're not trying to get people to take an action. What I tend to do, and it's because I'm the professor at heart. I teach at a couple schools, and I think I probably at one point in my career, I wanted to go and just go teach full time. And what I don't do very often is explain what I do and then how you can work with me. I usually do it at the very end. You'll hear about it at the end of an email or whatever, which it's kind of a common practice, but sometimes I wonder how clear I am. Here's what I should be doing. And I didn't do it on this call. I actually did this on the call, but I didn't pull the trigger. I said, if you have a problem in consumer insights or marketing strategy, I can help you. That was very clear. Like, okay, if I have an issue with understanding my customer and I have an issue with my marketing strategy, this guy can help me. Now, we did talk about, she has I don't want to go into details with it. She has a program that's going to help her understand her customers better, but it's already left the train station. What I did was I said, on the call, I said, man, I wish I would have known, wish we'd had the conversation. I bet we could have worked together on this. And she kind of nodded. And it was until my email later on that I said, you know what I should do? I said, hey, even if it has left the train station, I can still work with that data on the back end. So I was much more forceful in my ask, saying, if you want to use, and she was very interested in using my stuff, right? She advocated on my behalf. What I should have done is say, let's figure out a way where you and I can work together, as opposed to what I did. I was very passive, and it's just maybe my natural style. I said, oh, if there's ever an opportunity, I'd love to work with you. There is an opportunity. There's an opportunity right now, in fact, but she didn't see that opportunity. And even I didn't recognize it until afterwards. So it was an email afterwards that I sent over. Who knows where that's going to go? I missed that opportunity, right, Steve? Because she was right there in the moment. We talk about hot state decision-making, where she's in the mind state in that moment. I was teaching her throughout the time. She had high emotional arousal. She's advocating on my behalf. And then I didn't pull the trigger to try to get her to take an action of some kind. So you got to do that, guys. I know sometimes it feels salesy. I know sometimes it doesn't feel natural, but you can create emotional arousal, but they may not take action.
So we're getting a lot of messaging here. So Michael's saying, getting them to how does Will fit in versus does Will fit in is huge. Any advice to increase the odds of this? I presume it's back to their goals and motivations.
I think so, especially if you're going to get to that how. That's exactly right, Michael. I think you're right on that. It's reminding them that they have this aspirational goal. So for her, it was something around competence, right? I never asked her what her aspirational goal is, but she was asking me detailed questions because she wanted to learn more. So I knew she was driven by competence. So what I should have done is try to figure out, so, sounds as if that you're looking for a partner. How cool would that be? Sounds like you're looking for a partner to better educate your team so they can make better decisions for their company, right? If she's nodding, like, yeah. And then all of a sudden we have that. And at some point you got to figure out the urgency of it and say, it's probably pretty critical because right now, especially in the CPG space, consumer packaged goods space, a lot of companies are down 20, 30%, in fact, in revenues because of supply chain issues and everything else. So she's probably under some stress is my guess. Right? She's being asked to figure it out, or she feels like she has to figure it out. And she's not going to come out and say that on the first call, but I probably could have surmised that, I guess, if I would have kind of taken the moment to figure out, go back to the aspirational goal that she has, and then create the urgency around that. You got to create a timeline. It's probably pretty important that we figured this out. That would have been probably a stronger call to action, is my guess.
So I'm curious, do you just go, hey, what's your aspirational goal?
Oh, yeah. Unless they're on the couch behind me, they're laying on the couch, then I can probably do that. But no, it really comes down to this. Into the book, right? I first get down. What are you looking to do? What are you looking to accomplish? I'll use words like that, and they'll tell me. And then what I'll usually do is say something to the point. I'll say, what do you currently use right now? I'll usually say, what are you currently doing right now? And then what I'll do is like, well, having this information, how are you going to use this? When you say that, given this information you just asked me about, I want to have, I want to have these 5 things: low price, high quality, whatever those things are. Then I ask that question. So how are you going to use that? They're going to get you to the aspirational goal. It's going to be in that space. Well, if I have those things, then I'm going to be able to blank. That's ultimately as close as I think I can get on one conversation of an aspirational goal.
So in this, now that do you remember that show Beretta? Way back in the day. It's probably before your time.
I think I may, but go with that line. Go ahead, Steve. Go down this trail.
He was I don't know. He was like a detective or something, and I think he had this cockatiel, or he had a bird. That was his shtick. But he always said that Superman shows up after. I remember a quote that he said, like, after the situation, Superman shows up with all, you should have did this, you should have done that, right? So after this, where do you think maybe you could have improved on your thing? Did you're not comfortable with a sense of urgency?
Yeah, I think in many cases, let me go down into my psychology a bit. I'll talk about me. I don't oftentimes want to push and feel salesy. Mm-hmm. Like, I want you to accept me, Steve, for who I am. Like, I want you to recognize my brilliance and then say, I need you.
Uh-huh. We all want that.
Growing up.
Yeah.
So
the only one that gets it is my Border Collie.
Really? Yeah. That's right. That's the only one that really gets how great you are. So I think there's that. I don't want to be a salesperson. I don't want to be pushy. But the fact of the matter is, and that's the emotional kind of non-conscious side of me, right? I don't think that I want you to want me. Like you should want to work with me. And I think that in today's world where we're so much advertising and we have so much complexity and things like that, if she's on the call, which she was, and she stayed on the call for an hour, a little over an hour, chances are she wanted to work with me. It wouldn't have been that hard to kind of what Michael had said and say, how do we make this work? As opposed to like, something more passive, like when you're ready, I'm here for you. Because she spent an hour along with me. We had a great conversation. We went into really some cool topics. So I think yeah, I still recommend laddering. That's right. Laddering is exactly it. I would love to do it 3 to 5 times. Michael, the problem is when you ask somebody on the phone, they feel like you're not listening to them. So I think you got to try to ladder in 2, no more than 2. So, and I only try to do it in one thing. I may not get to the perfect aspirational goal, but if I can get another call with her, I'll get to know her a little more and I'll figure out what that aspirational goal is. If you do it 3 to 4 or 5 times on a one-to-one call, I've done this in research where people get frustrated. Like, hey, like, you don't like my first answer. And so it's hard to ladder. So anyway, Steve, I think what I should have done is actually I love what Michael said on his previous comment. It's like how, if you can even bring it up, get into how does Will fit in, right? So based on this, like how does this fit with what you're doing today? I think that is a much stronger call to action because she's now, I've asked her a question that her brain will try to, her brain will try to solve that problem. Our brains try to solve problems when it comes up with a problem. So rather than me saying, when you're ready, what I should have done is say, how do you think we could work together, make her build that bridge? And that bridge could be right now, or that bridge could be something that's pretty soon. I may go back and write her a letter. I think about it. That's really good, Michael. Damn it.
I got a letter signed by Will.
That's right.
I usually just get emails. I think about, when I'm having a conversation, I'm wanting to deconstruct this on the fly of a story arc. Okay. And so when I'm letting them talk, I'm wanting to identify and reveal what those deeper things are. So I don't have to ask why necessarily, but it's like they'll say, I want or I need. And then they'll also, so that's in the want section. So what does our hero want in this story, right? But then they'll also, at some point, we've tried this or this didn't work. That's their struggle bucket that I'm putting in it, right? And that struggle bucket is irritating the self-confidence in their competence area. In this case, in her competence, that struggle bucket is pinging their aspirational desires. And so now we have to be a little insightful and have some empathy and relate. Okay. So then you might ask, so is that making you feel like, tell me how that's making you feel? And they'll go directly there. That's another way of laddering. But I do it in like I'm trying to build out a story. If I was to stop and go, okay, so if I understand, Sally, you want this and you've tried this, but it's not doing that. And you would like to go here. Do I have it right? And then I'll get some confirmation and I'll get a couple of details that I missed.
Yep. I love it. No, people think in stories. So if you can relate back to them in stories, that's great. And I think and even during that story, you can say, and it sounds like you're getting pretty, because you asked the feeling. It sounds like you're getting kind of frustrated because the people you've been using who say they're gonna solve this for you, they haven't been able to solve it, huh? Like that is a classic, strong narrative psychology way of selling, right? Where they start feeling like this person understands me. Like they really get my story because we think in stories. We don't realize we do, but our whole lives, the way we think about our environment, it's all in a story. Or in a narrative. So when you can repeat somebody's narrative back to them, they feel understood. They feel like you're a safe person because you understand them as well as they understand themselves.
Yeah. So I'm trying to, we've got another comment here, but I can't scroll down for whatever reason. That's here we go. So Michael's saying, I like to give self-agency by offering 3 choices. Think Goldilocks and guide them to how it fits versus does it fit. then he customizes. He's a little ninja, this Michael, right?
Yeah, I know he is. He's a yeah. Here's the only thing I don't disagree with that, because then if you give the wide net, right, you give the the warm, the hot, and the just right, you give the three options that you do, or when somebody asks for it, it's a safe bet, because what you're doing then is you're basically covering all grounds, I think, on what's possible. Um, I would tell you that you never want to go more than three, because from a neuropsychology background, it tells you that's a rough thing to do. And what I find sometimes is that when you give people options, and I don't know if this is for everything, but when you give people options, but really they're motivated by, say, achievement. So remember, there's these, I'll tell you about these two motivations, Steve, right? Or Mike. One motivation is empowerment, which is our desire for control and options. That person wants to see those three options. The person who's driven by achievement, they just want success. And actually, so it's almost like sometimes, depending on what that motivation, you want to go, here's what I think is best for you. And then they're like, and now if they go, I'm not sure about that, say, well, maybe there's another option, but I don't lean in on the three options. I say, here's what I think is best for you. Here's what's going to be successful in your case. And they're more interested in the outcome than they are making the choices. So sometimes it's a better play to go all in on one choice if you know this person's driven by success. So the three option thing I'll use sometimes, particularly what I find, Mike, and you may find the same thing. I'll have clients ask for it. And what that usually means to me is that they don't have enough trust in me to give them. It just happened to me yesterday, as a matter of fact. Say, why don't you give me a good, better, best option? It's because I didn't establish enough trust in that conversation to where they felt like I can give them a recommendation, and only that recommendation. So yeah, so I know that we're not in that stage of the buying decision, the amount of trust that they have in me, for them not to see multiple options from me.
The other thing, she's been reading your stuff, and somewhere in some of those messages, she really related.
Mhm.
And it's like she's changed from why should I do this, Will, to how would I do this, Will, in our situation.
Yep.
That's the journey she's been on, because you've been nurturing her,
Mhm.
and so she's gone past why should I even consider this, but and now it's like she's trying to figure out how it fits her situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I think yesterday, or I'm sorry, last week, when we had this conversation, or was it yesterday? No, I think it was last week, late last week, that when you have that kind of rapport, that, like we just said, that sense of urgency, and then the action step.
Hmm.
And I think that, if you should think of it this way, if you're out there like me sometimes, where I feel like that's too pushy, I'm more passive. Let me know if we can work together. I'd love to work with someday. Realize that, think of yourself as the doctor. We've talked about this doctor frame before.
Yeah.
People don't go to the doctor to shoot the shit with the doctor, right? Hey, I got some aches and pains, but yeah, I just want to see how you're doing. Like, they're asking you, they're talking to you probably because they have a pain of some kind, and why would they waste their time? So even though she's interested in my topic, she wants to become more skilled. There is always an aspirational goal. There is a pain somewhere, or that aspiration she has not met. So there's a gap between where she is and where she wants to be in the future. If I thought of myself as the doctor, if you're in pain, what does a doctor do? If they have the right solution, and I think that's an important thing, don't just sell stuff to sell stuff. But if you have the right solution, it's your duty. It's your duty to try to offer that to that person in pain right then. You don't, as a doctor, you don't say, well, yeah, good luck with that. Come back to me when the pain really gets bad, and maybe we can work together. And that's kind of, in essence, what I did, without thinking about it until this meeting, right? Until us talking about it right now. So I feel very bad right now about how I handled it. But like I said, hey, I'm a master at this stuff, and I fail. I fail all the time too. We have our own issues, right, Steve?
Well, don't we?
Yep.
That's why we're here on the couches, processing our issues in public, which seems to be entertaining to a lot of folks here. Okay, so I think we established that lead nurturing does work. I think one big thing that we haven't talked about, it established rapport for sure in your situation, and it got you to the party.
Mhm.
And you actually, it got someone else to advocate for you and bring someone else to the table, and which is farther along than anyone else. Maybe it took a couple of years, but who cares? I mean, it's not like we're going anywhere, right?
Mhm.
and the issues still happen. So the only other thing I think about in this conversation is if you were to evaluate if she reached out, then in that list of folks that follow you, there's probably 50 others that are in the same boat, and they would like for you to maybe speak to them a little bit clearer,
Mhm.
more directly to them, and encourage them to take action. And
Mhm.
maybe it's that you need to maybe she's needing you to look over her shoulder on some of her work first.
Mhm.
So that's what's going through my mind if I was coaching you, is let's think about that there's a very distilled group that if we were to take the insights from this conversation that we had, how could we maybe get a couple of other folks to raise their hand that are just on the cusp of reaching out to Will and saying, "What is it that you exactly do?" I'm surprised by that question, but
Yeah.
then maybe we need to do a better job about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I think, we talk about behavioral science and the book is about behavioral science. And even still, it's still kind of like, yeah, but what does it really mean? And what it means is that you are developing marketing that probably can be optimized. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, right, Steve, there's a guy who can help you do that. It's me. Like I could take a look at your marketing. We could work on your marketing, look at an email together. We could look at a piece of print, social media, whatever, look at it together. And I can tell you, just by watching me, we could talk about how we would deconstruct this thing and then put it back together so that it's optimized. And if people just realize that that's ultimately what we do, that's what I do, right? Is I
Mhm.
just work with people to optimize your communications and I teach you how to do that on your own. Maybe that's the easiest thing you can do is like just reach out and say, I want to schedule time with you. Let's talk about a piece of marketing and what would you do differently to engage, like to increase engagement, and that's ultimately what we do, regardless of all the words we use and the research and things like that. That's what we do.
Excellent. So guess what time it is? It's time
Catching
to
the ducks
watch.
time.
It's feeding the ducks.
Feeding the ducks. Feeding the ducks.
Yeah, we're not Sylvester Stallone. We can't catch these ducks. We're too slow. We're too old. We watch Will dance. Will, the scientist who helps us connect better with the clients. So when it comes to lead nurturing, what's the most common mistake you see businesses make?
Yep. Especially on small businesses that I talk to, it's that when they get content, they're making content, they're writing emails, they don't want to modify emails for different stages of the journey. So what they do is it's a one email fits all, right? So they send out an email and thanks, Hunter. I really appreciate you. What they do is that they have a piece of communication. They just blast it to everybody the same way. And that, I know it sounds like it's more work, but if that extra 30 minutes, if you were to tailor your communication that you do on YouTube, which is just about introducing yourself to the massive world versus your email communications that are focused on somebody who knows you, they've been buying your stuff, they know all about you and you're trying to get them to take an action. Those are two different types of communications. If you tailor your communication, you'll be better. I think that's the common mistake, is it feels like it's too much work. So they just write one email and they blast it everywhere.
Mhm. Yeah, I had a conversation just yesterday, and she was like disappointed in a way to find out how much really needs to go into doing lead nurturing properly. It's a lot of work. You just can't let's grab a list and send it out and wait for the phone to ring. It's
Well, I was gonna say, it reminds me of conversations I have with your team. So guys out there, Steve does almost all my marketing, in fact. And I'm always like, can I just send them some, like, I use this term, like, I want to spam them. I want to spam them. Like, no, well, we're not going to spam people. Cause it feels like it's like so much easier to just send one cool little, picture with some words and just send it out to everybody and just be done with it. But the discipline matters. The discipline matters.
Hey, Pete, most common mistake is not stepping back to first create a plan. Great
Yeah, that
comments,
is
folks.
so true. Because we want to take action. We want sales today. But if you could just give a half hour for that plan, guys, you can achieve double-digit growth. So that's why you do it.
Hunter, I was giggling because while he was talking about his vacuum fixation, and I don't know what motivation that's comforting your competence or whatever, but I
Yeah.
always find myself stopped in the aisles looking at all the coolers. I guess it's the pretty colors and the
Is that your
plastic.
thing?
I
The
guess.
coolers.
All right. So let's get back to this watching you dance. So real quick, why do people sometimes not take action on marketing that's meant for them?
Yeah, there's just massive distraction, guys. What I'm trying to do is create an environment and create learning to where you can optimize your marketing for the subconscious. And sometimes people get really excited about that stuff, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna see I'm gonna solve marketing." You're never gonna solve marketing. There's so much distraction. There's so many people advertising. Like I always tell my students, anyone can advertise to anyone, anywhere in the world, at any time for almost free. So because of that, there's so much advertising out there that it's just created fear and trust issues like across the board. How many times do you get somebody on LinkedIn every day saying, "Hey, Will, I want to connect with you, and have you thought about working together?" Like I don't even know this person, but I get these things 3 or 4 times a day. It's because I think people feel so comfortable just telling you, "Here, you should work with me," that it creates mistrust. So ultimately, people are not taking action because they do not feel like they can trust you for the most part, or like, frankly, you're just communicating something that is not tapping into that aspirational goal. So I think the biggest thing is that if you are in fact tapping the aspirational goal, you have not created trust with that person yet. And so that is going to be the hardest thing you can do. Not in today's world. It's just, there's too much distraction.
All right. One little more dance move. What is hyper-personalization? That's easy for me to say.
I got it. What is hyper-personalization in sales and marketing? I love that. So there's a new term that's out. It's been kind of becoming popular, I would say, in the last 6 years or so. Hyper-personalization is that the use of technology and artificial intelligence now allows for companies to personalize messaging to this hyper-personalized message, in fact, to the person, to the individual. Here's an example. There's a company that just got valued, I think, at like 600 million. They just ran a Series C, I think. But it's called Mutiny. I may be getting the valuation wrong, but here's what they do. They can look at data from your behavior, individual data from your behavior. And I don't know how they do it. I don't know this company at all. I just saw the announcement, and they can create a website that's been personalized for you as you're coming in. So imagine what that means, that before they even know you, your data is coming in, and it's so fast. Artificial intelligence is so fast that it can build the content within a website so it fits you. So that's hyper-personalization at a very innovative level or whatever. But really, hyper-personalization sales and marketing is marketing to the individual of what they need to hear at the exact moment they need to hear it. So technology is allowing us to do that in a much more radical way than even 4 years ago.
That's happening on your social feeds as well.
Yeah.
You made a comment earlier that probably about 40% of the content that's produced is not read.
Yep.
Yeah, it's most probably that number of that content being produced by artificial intelligence is that number as well. And I don't think that the search engines care.
Yeah, why would they? It's revenues, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Probably rewards that. Will, this has been a great conversation. We should do more of these. Thanks, guys, for all the comments.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate the comments and the questions. It's good.
This is a form of lead nurturing that when we do these conversations, we've been doing this show for now, a year and a half?
Yep, we have.
And there have been times where we go, do we need to keep doing this? I get confirmations like this all the time. Here we go. See, great stuff. Thanks,
Facebook user.
Yeah. Do you think that's a real person, the Facebook user?
I don't know. I think it says with the exclamation point and great stuff. I do believe it's not a bot. I think it's a person. So
it's a person.
Facebook user, man. Yes.
Hey, we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's why we do this show. It's like I learned from this stuff. I love hanging out with Will because he wrote the book Mindstate, Marketing to Mindstate, and so that's why we do this for you folks. So if we can give Will a call, get his book at least.
Yeah.
Let him look over your shoulder. Let's fine tune your message. Let's set you up as the hero in your organization.
Yeah, thank you. All you have to do is just, guys, go to the mindstategroup.com and you can book an appointment with me, and we can look at your marketing together and see some real common mistakes I see lots of people use. And let me just get you, one step better, right? That's all. It's a journey. Get one step better. It's real simple to do. Just go to mindstategroup.com and click on those contact links that are all over.
All right. We also have a podcast. You're listening to it if you're listening, or you could be watching it on YouTube. So subscribe on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and you can subscribe on the YouTube channel, the Mindstate channel, where there's all these conversations that Will and I stumble through are waiting there for you. Will, one last comment, and we're on the way. So good. Still learning. Always walk away with something from this. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. All right. We'll see you later.
Take care, everybody. Have a good week.
Mind stayed on, Will. Mind stayed on, brother.